From the Sunshine State, this is Tampa Bay's TAN Talk.
I'm bringing sexy back. Yeah. The mother boys don't know how to act. Yeah. I think it's special what's behind your back. Yeah. So turn around and I'll pick up the slack. Yeah.
And now, it's Happy Hour with Dana Pepper.
Hey, welcome to Happy Hour. I'm your host, Dana Pepper, and I gotta tell you, I am so happy that this show is finally getting started because the anticipation and the anxiety leading up to this moment was starting to get on my nerves. So, thank you all for joining me this afternoon, and to all my friends that are texting me right now, giving me the kudos and the shout-outs. I really appreciate it, and thank you for tuning in and listening. Now, I want to go into what this show is all about, because when I started telling people, friends, family members, that I was doing a show called Happy Hour, everybody said, wait, you're going to do a show, an entire show about drinking? And I'm like, no, the show is not about drinking. Although I do think that life is better when accompanied by a bottle of wine or 3. But the show is more about, you know, that moment in the day when everybody can finally exhale, kick back with some friends, chill, and have some real conversations and share some stories. So that's what Happy Hour is all about. Welcome to it. And today, our show today is quite interesting. We're going to be talking about sex surrogacy. Now, I want to get into a little backstory of where this idea came from, because despite what people may believe, I didn't decide to do a show on sex surrogates for sensationalism. Although if that's why you're tuning in, I do appreciate it. But I decided to do this show because one of my favorite actresses, Helen Hunt, if you're not familiar with her, she was in As Good as It Gets with Jack Nicholson, and excuse me, she was on that sitcom Mad About You, playing opposite Paul Reiser. Well, she was recently nominated for an Academy Award, and it was for a role that she had in an independent film. And the film was called The Sessions. And in the movie, she plays a real-life sex surrogate by the name of Cheryl Cohen Green. And it depicts the true story of writer and poet Mark O'Brien. And the story is all about how he lost his virginity at the age of 38. Now, Mark O'Brien, he had polio when he was a kid. So even though he was a quadriplegic, I mean, he couldn't move from the neck down. It wasn't because he was paralyzed. He still had feeling, but he couldn't move any of his muscles. So imagine, because I'm 38, I just outed myself. But imagine if for 38 years, you have normal body sensations. You get aroused. You have all of this stuff going on, and you can't do anything about it. I mean, you can't masturbate. You can't, touch yourself. And when other people touch you, you can't respond the way you want to. I mean, that blew my mind. So at 38, he loses his virginity to a sex surrogate. But I got to thinking, sex surrogate? Now, there's a profession you don't think about every day, right? Like, what? So anyway, about a month ago, I was a guest on a friend's radio show, The Man Update. And who should I get introduced to but my guest today? And at the time, he was going by the name of Cass, because they all use aliases to protect the guilty, I guess. But he's going by the name of Cass. And my friend Ace, he says, hey, Dana, guess what Cass does for a living? And I'm like, what? And he goes, he gets women off. And so my inner blonde says, he gets women off what? Yeah. And after everybody has a good chuckle, he's like, no. He gets them off, like he jerks them off. He's a sex surrogate. And I'm like, get out of here, because even though I knew that there were female sex surrogates, it didn't even occur to me that there might be male sex surrogates. So that brings me to where we are right now. I was like, dude, you've got to come on my show, please. You've got to be a guest. I want to talk to you. Tons of people are going to have questions, and sure enough, here we are. So my guest today is Cass, also known as Steven Sapato. And Steve, he is the author of The Unintended Casanova, as well as The 20, which both books are available on Amazon.com. He's also a relationship expert and practicing sex surrogate. Yeah! Welcome, Steve.
Thank you very much, Dana.
And thank you for allowing me to use your real name, because I'm sure I was going to forget to call you Cass at some point.
That's right.
Yeah, when I go on the Man Update, I always forget to call Ace by Ace as opposed to his real name. Yeah. So, all right. So I want to get into this and ask you, Steve, first and foremost, what is a sex surrogate?
A sex surrogate is really someone who helps someone else get through difficult emotions, difficult feelings, feelings that they can't express. And we actually, after they've gone to a professional, psychologist, psychiatrist, that type of thing, or other tantric experiences, a lot of times they still don't know how to experience their own sexuality.
Okay.
So then they contact a sex surrogate to help them through that.
Wow. So then what type of emotional issues are you helping people get through? Like, what would prompt someone to say, well, I need to call a sex surrogate and work this out?
Well, usually it comes by referral. They've already gone through the emotional challenges with a professional like that.
Okay.
And that's where they find out whether they've reached a place or barrier that they can or cannot do or achieve something. And a lot of times they're turned over to us just for us to help them talk them through parts, because the other professionals aren't necessarily allowed to do those certain kind of things. And so, limited by their own profession.
Right.
But when they come to us, then we spend a lot of time talking to them, a lot of time sharing with them, and a lot of time teaching them how to experiment with themselves before they ever, have to go any farther.
Experiment with themselves. What,
Sure.
Do you mean masturbation?
Yeah, some of it can be masturbation, sure.
And do you watch and instruct?
Not necessarily. The first 2 or 3 months that we work with someone is really designed out so that we can talk to them, see what their feelings are, see what their limitations are. Because some people come to us and they really just can't even talk about sex. They're like, I'm not comfortable talking about it. That's the whole point. We talk to them. We say, if you can't talk about it, you certainly can't do this. And it's like, do you touch yourself? Do you do this? No. And so yet they want to experience that. They want to feel that. A lot of times it's a woman who's had sex many times but never experienced an orgasm. And you ask them, what have you done with yourself? And they'll say, well, nothing.
Right.
So, our job is to talk them into, boy, you have to understand yourself. You have to achieve yourself. And that's the psychologist, psychiatrist type people have already done that. And so ours is now that they've reached that place, now we get to open them up by actually talking about it, getting them involved in their own experimentation.
Right. Now, I read, when I was doing my research for this particular segment, I read that there is an astronomical percentage of women that are in their 30s or 40s who have never experienced an orgasm, either by themselves or with a partner. Does that not blow your mind? Like, how many of these women where it's that issue, they can't achieve pleasure by themselves? How many times does that come up?
Oh, all the time. I mean, that's the whole point. And like you said, that blows your mind when you learn that, there are men who cannot achieve orgasm.
Oh, we're going to talk about that too.
Yeah. When you learn there are men and women who have never achieved orgasm, and that's when you get to ask them, well, what have you done to yourself? And they say, well, nothing. It's like, oh, yeah, and that's exactly it. They're like locked up. And that's where you have to start saying, hey, when you touch yourself here, when you feel that, when you touch your own breast, well, when your partner touches your breast, what do you feel? What do you experience? And a lot of times they feel it, but they also don't express it to their partner. Ooh. So for them not to express that pleasure,
right.
Not to say, hey, boy, that feels good, or not to moan, or whatever you want to do in your particular experience, is just like, so then they're, in the dark. Their partner's in the dark. How do I please somebody when I don't know what pleases them?
Right, exactly.
So it is, yeah, it's fascinating.
It really is. I tell you what, like I said, I knew that because of the movie, I knew that there were female sex surrogates, but I didn't know that there were male sex surrogates. But I would imagine, other than like erectile dysfunction and things of that nature, I mean, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, because you're the expert, but I think it would be that there's a greater percentage of women that have issues regarding their own sexuality and expressing themselves to a partner, and just overall more inhibition in general. Do you find that?
What you find is the women are more likely to express that they have the problem. The men won't express it. The men won't share. The men won't tell, whether they have erectile dysfunction or whether they've got other, health problems along that line. Sometimes the men go to the women so that they can learn how to prolong an erection, because, men are known for being quick. Hey, this happens this fast. And so in order to please their partner, they have to learn to control that. Well, they can't necessarily with their partner because they don't have that communication. So they'll go to somebody as a professional, and then if they're referred out, they can go to a surrogate. Right. And that surrogate teaches them how to prolong that. So it's a fascinating topic, and certainly a subject that you get to get involved with all of your patients and subjects or so.
Excellent. Well, when I was watching the movie, in fact, one of the scenes in the movie is where the surrogate is trying to, because the problem that he had is because he had all of these sensations that he could feel on his body, but no muscle movement, premature ejaculation was the thing. And like the first time they were ever in a session together, I mean, she had just taken off her clothes and was about to get in the bed. And that was all it took for him to just, explode. Yeah. And so, but the way that she handled it was, oh, well, that's impressive. And I'd like to think it was my overwhelming beauty that caused such a reaction, so I'll take it. If you want to call in and you've got some questions, the call-in number locally is 727-441-3000. If you're not local to Tampa Bay, then it's 866-826-1340. We're going to take a break. When we get back, we will dive more deeply into you, Mr. Sapato, and all of your expertise. You are listening to Happy Hour with Dana Pepper. We'll be back in a moment. It's no secret that I'm a huge fan of happy hours. And there have been times when I'm sitting in a restaurant bar and I overhear the strangest conversations. And I know as loud as I am, people have overheard some of mine. So what about you? What's the most bizarre or scintillating happy hour conversation you've ever had or overheard? Submit your story and you could win lunch for two at the Center Club. Then listen to Happy Hour with Dana Pepper every Thursday afternoon at 3 to hear the winning story. Go to facebook.com/Happy Hour with Dana Pepper. At Cremations of Greater Tampa Bay, nothing is more important than family. Funeral director TJ Cohen is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. His experience and compassion brings peace of mind to those dealing with the death of a loved one. Call TJ at Cremations of Greater Tampa Bay at 813-235-0945. That's 813-235-0945. Cremations of Greater Tampa. Compassion, experience, service.
This is your boy Charlie Murphy. This is the Money Man, Eddie Money. Hey, this is Jim Florentine. Tom Cotter from America's Got Talent. John Henton Overton from Living Single.
Hey, this is Frank Caliendo.
This is Greg Millings.
Martha Reeves of Martha and the Vandellas.
This is Maurice Starr. Big Boy Town, baby.
Terry Luce from the band Great White.
This is Downtown Dade.
And you are listening to...
You're listening to...
And I love to listen to the Artie Fletcher Show.
The Artie Fletcher Show, weeknights at 8 on the TAN Talk Radio Network.
For all your home repair needs, call Ed's Handyman Services at 727-224-8681. For example, toilets, faucet, door locks, and much, much more. Impeccable quality work and reliable real-time service at an astonishing affordable price. Ed provides a clean, safe work environment from start to finish. Licensed, bonded, and insured, Ed guarantees all his work. So call Ed now at 727-224-8681.
From the Sunshine State, this is Tampa Bay's TAN Talk.
All right, I start dancing when the music comes on because that's how I get warmed up. Anybody who knows me knows that I can't keep still when the music comes on. So, welcome back to Happy Hour. I'm Dana Pepper, and my guest today is Steve Sapato. Steve is the author of The Unintended Casanova, as well as The 20, both of which are available on Amazon.com. But more importantly, he is our subject matter expert today because he is a practicing sex surrogate. So, right off the bat, as we're coming back, Steve, I want to ask you, how does someone get involved in this profession? Like, what makes a person say, hey, I'm pretty good at this sex stuff. Maybe I could teach some people a thing or two. Like, how did this start for you?
It actually started as I owned a nightclub. People would come up and they'd talk to you about all the topics, so you got involved in that. And then I went to, I took some courses, like tantric sex and those type of things. So you're into you're into meditation and you're into tantrics and you're onto all that. And those people help you evolve if they see a need for that, if they see a potential in you.
Okay.
And so they say, hey, you should probably go do this, and you should probably go do that. And then you take these other courses, whether they're online or in person, and you evolve into that, because not everybody is designed to do that, because it's like a doctor type thing. And I don't want to say that, like way out there, but you have to detach yourself so many times. And much of our stuff is done over the phone without ever being involved with someone. 90% of it is over the telephone or in person, talking to them and then, having them do something else.
But if it's sexual surrogacy, then why wouldn't there be a higher percentage of the physical? Or is that just that's the way that you do, you run your practice? That's
the way I run my practice.
Okay.
I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of other people who, like with the Helen Hunt story, where, that's the next step for them. And I found that so much of it is that you can talk people into it. Good 3/4 of my clients, when you talk to them over the phone and give them exercises and give them things to do and achieve, that's when you'll find that a lot of times they can teach themselves. And that's what they've been afraid to do. So when they talk about it and they can, I've never talked to anybody about something like this. And you're like, maybe you should, and that's the whole point of me being there, is that you can talk to the opposite sex or the same sex about it. Get yourself to that place where you can actually discuss it open. Right. And once you open that part of your mind, other parts start to open. And so it's really cool when they'll call you up one day and go, hey, I think I felt something. And you're like, hey,
That's awesome. Well, hopefully, you never know. Happy hour might be some kind of surrogate for something, because we're going to get to talking about a lot of stuff. But one of the things I want to ask you, Steve, what's the difference between a sex worker, meaning a prostitute, and a sex surrogate, other than just the illegality of one versus the other? Because I've often made this this comparison with, I have a girlfriend back in Fort Lauderdale, and she is a form of a sex worker. She used to do porn videos. And I would argue the point, what is the difference between someone who is getting paid to have sex on video versus someone who is just getting paid to have sex without the video? So what is the difference between someone who's getting paid to have sex in the name of therapy versus someone who's getting paid to have sex because somebody just needs or wants sex?
Well, and that's exactly the whole point, is the legality is, if they're coming to you just to have sex, then the world has made it wrong. Don't ask me why that is, but that's wrong, right? Whereas if they're coming to you for a version of therapy or for assistance, for a way to achieve certain results, that's a completely different outlook by the powers that be.
Okay.
And that is the difference, is that we're there. I don't say, hey, come over every Friday night, we're going to do the wild thing. We might talk to them for weeks and weeks before we may never have to get together with them. That's what I love the best, is we never have to get together, because they've reached that self emotionally and mentally.
Right.
And that's probably one of the best rewards you can get, is because you were able to open up that mind. But that's the difference, is if they come to us just to have sex, then it's illegal.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. Now, how do you go about getting clients? Where do you find them?
It's always referral.
It's always referral from a practicing, MD or psychologist or psychotherapist or something like that. Okay.
One of our tantric people in other areas, if they're practicing tantric sex and they run across somebody who just isn't achieving the results, then a lot of times they don't want to, their meditation may not get to that place, so then they turn them over to us, or they ask us to at least talk to them.
Okay. Now, speaking of the difference between, one sex worker versus another, can I ask you how much your sessions are? Because in the movie, Helen Hunt, her character, Cheryl Cohen Green, she charged $300 for a 2-hour session. And what was interesting is that in the first scene where they're having a session, as soon as she walks in the door, Mark O'Brien's character is already in the bed, and he goes, "Your money's on the table." And she's like, thanks, but I'm not a prostitute, right? So
that's it.
So how much is one of your sessions?
I don't really divulge that. I mean, that's not something I'm going to give to you, because it depends on the individual, and also depends on what we're trying to achieve.
Right.
So we work out a program for them.
Okay.
How long we're going to work with them versus what we're trying to achieve. And it is, it can be a significant amount if they're going to be around for a while. Otherwise, it could be, just 2 or 3 times of sessions where you talk to them and encourage them. So it varies with each, and I shouldn't say very much with each individual, but certainly what they're trying to accomplish.
Right. Now, is there ever a time when your clients or patients teach you something? Like, do you ever learn anything new?
Oh, absolutely. Anytime you stop learning is when you've reached that place where you probably need to get out of whatever business you're in.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, there's lots of times, well, and, I mean, I don't know how graphic we want to get here, but sometimes you reach that place where you're like, really? I mean, real simple. I had one lady one time, and in finding out stuff, there was a spot here on her rib.
Okay.
That she said, this is my sensual spot. And, and I was like, what? And I mean, we talked about that for some length of time, but if you kissed her on that spot, she could almost orgasm.
Oh my God. I wish it were that easy for me. Damn.
So I've quit trying to figure out what makes somebody work versus, hey, do you find out what works? Well, if that works for you, go for it.
Then go for it. Oh, wow. All right. So we are taking your questions. If you need to call in locally at 727-441-3000, toll free 866-826-1340. I want to ask more questions. I don't want to go to another break. So let's get real, Steve. Ready?
No.
Let's get real. Let's say I come to you either via phone or whatever. I come to you via referral. Mm-hmm. And I'm someone who is having a problem expressing myself sexually. I can't even touch myself because I have some, issues with parents or molestation or whatever. I mean, there are some serious issues out there, but I come to you with one of these and it's keeping me from, and I'm 38 years old. I can't touch myself, so I can't experience orgasm by myself or with a partner. Describe a session to me. Like, how would a session between you and I start off?
Well, first of all, they've gone through their own professional therapy.
Or they're undergoing therapy.
Correct.
Okay.
And so hopefully we've passed most of that by, or they've been able to deal with that. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've even seen somebody working with a past life regression professional to try and, get something that was supposedly 2 lifetimes ago. I mean, I don't know those things. So all I can do is we start off by asking, okay, what are you trying to achieve? So you say, is your goal to achieve orgasm? And of course you say, yes, that'd be the ultimate goal. But then let's talk about what the first goal is. The first goal is, what have you experienced so far in your life? And we talk about, can you touch yourself? Now, this might be over the phone. A lot of times I'm talking to people over the phone, and I ask them, can you touch yourself at all? I'd say, hey, Dana, can you touch yourself? Oh, yeah. I say,
in
okay.
the shower, I can touch myself.
Yeah, and I go, and so if you're sitting here right now, can you reach over and just massage your breasts? And they'll say, no, no, that's not a comfortable place for me. And that's when you say, why not? Right? Let's find out why you don't like to touch yourself. Well, that's just weird, or that's this. And you say, no, that's not. And that's important that we start to discover that, start to understand that. So the thing I want you to do, and like you say, let's start with your arm. Right. And then let's do your shoulder. And does that feel good? And they go, yeah. I go, now run your hand down to your breast, and let's talk about that. And they're like, and they go quiet on the end of the phone usually. And I go, are you doing it? I'm trying to. Right. And that's what it is. It's an inch by inch. That's why I say, when you say how much you charge, what are your fees? It really depends on how far we have to travel. Right. Because and then we want to talk about it. And they'll talk to them over the phone. If you're rubbing your areoles, does that feel good? If you're rubbing your nipples, does that feel good? How about a full breast massage? And there are people, massage therapists, that only specialize in breast massage. Did you know that?
I did not know that, but I'm thinking that might be a whole other show. What? There are massage therapists that only specialize in breast massage.
That's right. Because there's certain muscles involved and certain ways to do that and certain techniques they could use that really help ladies establish, and overcome. So
if a woman is not very sensitive in her breast area and she's never been able to achieve orgasm or even get aroused from that, then that kind of massage would help?
It's a good place to start.
Are you trained in that?
No.
Oh, well.
No.
Steve.
Yeah, I know. Sorry, me. It's like, hey, I volunteer, but, I do that at the bars. I just walk up and go, hey, would you like a free breast massage? But they don't jump for that. I'm not sure why.
Oh, my goodness. All right. So, okay, when I was doing my research for this, I came up with a lot of stuff, right? There is a lot of information out there. And one of the things I came up with was, There is an organization called the International Professional Surrogates Association, and they certify surrogates and therapists. Now, because of the illegality issue with sex workers, I understand that it's important to have, a regulatory or governing body. But there are a lot of surrogates that are freelance, right? Because this one is only in the United States. I don't know if they're international. What do you think of individuals that are just doing it on the fly or haven't had the training or affiliation with the professionals like you have?
Well, and that is part of the problem. I mean, you have to, it's like anything else you do. You look for the professionals in the job, and that's why everything works off referral for me. It's if you get that referral, then hopefully they understand that you are the professional they've been looking for. And you have to establish that in early on, what you're really trying to accomplish. I always tell people, if they've got a choice between surrogates, if you get down to the physical level and your surrogate takes off all their clothes and wants to jump in bed with you, you might want to rethink it, especially if it happens too soon. Right. And so it's one of the big warning signs. It's a big bell going off.
Well, okay, but how do you get, because, okay, one of the things that I found additionally is that, there's a process to this, right? And
Correct.
There's a comfort level that has to be established.
Absolutely.
Right? And there's a communication bond and a trust and all of that, like any relationship.
Absolutely.
So how do you establish something like that just over the phone? If you can't look someone eye to eye, then how did they develop a trust and a warmth towards you that would lend them to trust you?
That's one of the things when they were first, my teachers were first looking at me, said, you have this talent, you might want to make it, evolve it. And that was one of the things, is because I could bring out that trust level, and I think that's a big part of it. And that trust level is done without me pushing you.
Okay.
If you find me pushing you or getting aggressive with you, then I'm not going to gain that trust. Mine is always about, especially over the phone, is about, hey, try this. No, I don't want to. I appreciate that. That's one of the things we get to do, but you need to do this step in order to go to the next level. So let's do that. And you might do it. You got a week before we talk again. So just see what you can come up with and see how close you can get, or see what you can achieve in this time.
Right.
But it's never a push, because then you do alienate them. You back them away.
Exactly. We are talking today with sex surrogate relationship expert and author Steve Sapato. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back. But please call in. I know you got questions. 727-441-3000 or toll free 866-826-1340. I'm Dana Pepper. This is Happy Hour. It's no secret that I'm a huge fan of happy hours. And there have been times when I'm sitting in a restaurant bar and I overhear the strangest conversations. And I know, as loud as I am, people have overheard some of mine. So what about you? What's the most bizarre or scintillating happy hour conversation you've ever had or overheard? Submit your story and you could win lunch for two at the Center Club. Then listen to Happy Hour with Dana Pepper every Thursday afternoon at 3 to hear the winning story. Go to facebook.com/Happy Hour with Dana Pepper. At Cremations of Greater Tampa Bay, nothing is more important than family. Funeral director TJ Cohen is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. His experience and compassion brings peace of mind to those dealing with the death of a loved one. Call TJ at Cremations of Greater Tampa Bay at 813-235-0945. That's 813-235-0945. Cremations of Greater Tampa. Compassion, experience, service.
This is John Austin, the host of TAN Talks, the Book Club, a program that spotlights undiscovered authors and their books. If you are a published author and feel that your book has not had the exposure it deserves, and you would like to be considered for a guest spot in the book club, email your name, the title of your book, along with a brief synopsis of the book to bookclub1340@gmail.com. Be sure to include your contact information. And be sure and join me, John Austin, on the book club every Tuesday morning at 10 on the TAN Talk Radio Network.
For all your home repair needs, call Ed's Handyman Services at 727-224-8681. For example, toilets, faucet, door locks, and much, much more. Impeccable quality work and reliable real-time service at an astonishing affordable price. Ed provides a clean, safe work environment from start to finish. Licensed, bonded, and insured, Ed guarantees all his work. So call Ed now at 727-224-8681.
Don't turn it off now. You need this stuff. Tampa Bay's Tan Talk Radio Network.
Welcome back to Happy Hour. I am your host, Dana Pepper, and I am here today with Steve Sapato, author of The 20 and The Unintended Casanova, both available on Amazon.com. And Steve is a subject matter expert because he is a practicing sex surrogate. And so picking up where we left off, or just going in a completely different direction, but still on topic, Steve, you know, during the break, we were talking about how in this country in particular, it's interesting how we can, on television, we can see heads being blown off. We can see all mannerisms of violence and cruelty to one another. But God forbid during the Super Bowl a nipple gets shown, or somebody show an ass crack or something like that. And then, you know, oh my God, we saw a body part. Good God almighty, it's the apocalypse. So, but what I found interesting in all the research that I did was that there are only a few countries, or there was only a few countries where sex surrogacy is legal, and the United States is one of them. So I was very happy to hear about that. For example, in France, sexual surrogacy is still considered prostitution. And so disabled patients, you know, if they're in wheelchairs, they have muscular dystrophy or atrophy or whatever, they are right now at the forefront of a movement that's trying to legalize surrogacy because of the health benefits. I mean, imagine, again, just like the movie The Sessions, but here, you know, I read about a real life story in the New York Times, and it's a 31-year-old virgin who is confined to a wheelchair, and she can't move, she can't masturbate, and, you know, her country, she's French, her country is not, they're not even willing to listen to the benefits of it. It's not like we're arguing about the health benefits of marijuana. We're talking about the health benefits of being able to touch yourself, to love yourself, to give yourself pleasure. So comment on that, if you would.
Well, you're exactly right. I mean, I've got a friend that was in a speaking engagement with me last year called April Chandler, and she's written a book called, let's see if I can remember the title. It was something like Orgasm Your Way to Great Health.
Oh, right?
Yeah. But she's from England. I flew her over from England for our last seminar, and that's one of those deals where, as you say, there's so many things that we can talk about. We can't talk about how people say, well, you can't do certain things, and it is amazing to me that we can put out violent games. Mm-hmm. We can show all this horror on TV. We can show all kinds of movies, but we can't show sex. We can't talk about it. That's one of the big challenges. People are so stifled that they can't even talk about sex.
It's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, I even read online somewhere, I wish I could cite the source now. I guess that's something I was supposed to remember because I learned in high school. But it said that sex toys, just toys, things that help couples, things that help individuals, they're still illegal in some states. Alabama, Georgia, Virginia, and Kansas.
I did not know
It
that.
is still illegal to purchase sex toys.
No way.
Now, do people still purchase them? I'm sure they do try to stop them. I don't know how something like that is enforceable, but it's still illegal. I mean, are we in puritanical times? I'm getting confused. Anyway, so
we are.
Moving on. So, here's something that someone again, I got a lot of information online. Google is dangerous, but just like any sex worker, I would imagine, if you have to engage with someone physically that you're not attracted to, how do you deal with that? How do you get aroused by someone that when you look at them, it ain't there?
Don't misunderstand what I do.
Okay.
All right. When you say, how do I get aroused?
Right.
I don't get aroused. That's not my job.
Okay, that's a good distinction to make.
Helen Hunt's job maybe was to get aroused in hers, right? I do not have sex with my patients, right? I help them achieve orgasm.
So you never have intercourse with them?
No, I do not.
Okay, are there male sex surrogates? And I already know the answer to this because I did my homework. But are there male sex surrogates that do have intercourse with their patients?
Yeah, you know.
Okay,
that.
why? But my audience might not.
That's right.
Right. So, why don't you? And then why is it not important for you to be aroused? Because how are you pleasing somebody else if you're not getting anything out of it?
Well, let's back up to that issue all by itself.
Okay.
First of all, when I find a partner, right, which, as you know, in my relationship stuff, it's difficult to find the right partner. And my getting aroused is all about arousing my partner.
Right.
And so that's how I get aroused. It doesn't matter. You could be the greatest looking woman in the world, and if
try.
Yeah, you don't excite me, I go, hey, that's it. I'm out of here. Or you don't have to be. It's what arouses me. And so hearing my partner get excited, feeling my partner get excited, all that stuff that we do with our partners is what really pumps you up, and that's what makes me excited. What I do in surrogacy is my job is to help you find and achieve that orgasm, if that's your goal.
Right.
Some people, that's not their goal. Some of them is just to experience pleasure during an intercourse.
Right.
Right. So my job, a lot of times, and I tell them, I said, my job is not to bring you here and massage your breasts and do all this stuff. My job, if you ever get with me, right, is to remove your clothes from the waist down and then show you pleasure. And I do that with my fingers. I do that with my hands. We do that with lotions. We do that a lot of times with, like you said, the toys, the vibrators, or the massagers. And I don't get undressed for that. And so that's the job, is if you can figure out how to achieve, if you've never had an orgasm and you can figure out how to achieve that orgasm, you can figure it out with somebody else. You don't need me to do that.
But if I'm imagining, and I'm trying to imagine myself being in a room with a fully clothed man, and I'm waist down naked, and he's teaching me how to pleasure myself, but he's not getting really fully involved or invested, I would have that in itself would make me uncomfortable, because you're not engaged. You're not part of this. You're not sharing it with me. Isn't that part of it? Isn't that an intimacy issue?
But I am. And that's all part of what we do.
Okay.
I am sharing it with that person because that does excite me. Watching you get excited excites me.
Hey,
do
baby.
I have to have you? Yeah. Okay, let's go. Sorry, we're out of the Dana Pepper show now. But it is, and that really is the key. I mean, that's the key to this whole thing is, do you have to feel my erection to know that I'm excited? No, you can see that in my face. You can see that in my eyes. You can tell it in my touch. And so that alone is the key to achieving success in whatever you're trying to do. So that's my pleasure, is if that woman goes, oh, and she closes her eyes and says, wow, I'm there.
Nice.
Oh, it is, and that's part of it. Because sometimes all you're trying to do is whether you're massaging, whether you're inserting, whether you're spread. I mean, all that stuff is all about, do I discover the place that really excites you, right? Because it may be on the clitoris. It may be on what they call the G spot right inside. It may be that spot way deep inside the cervix that you have to really reach for.
And so, are you talking about the elusive G spot?
Yeah, the elusive G spot, which is really right behind the clitoris in the female vagina.
You know what? That brings me to what we need to discuss next. And that is all of the things that we could actually learn from a sex surrogate. So I want to talk about that next. But I do want to address the fact that there have been some callers that have been talking to my engineer, Cedric, who, by the way, is awesome. But there have been some callers who have called in with some questions, but I guess because of the subject matter, they're a little bashful. So one of the questions that came in, I'll share with you guys. Steve, would you ever work with a man? Like, let's say there was a gay gentleman that, was having erectile dysfunction issues, but he couldn't work with a female surrogate because that's not his orientation preference. Would you ever work with a gay man, since most of your stuff is not touching anyway, but more tutoring?
Yeah, I'll be honest, I'm not comfortable in that area, so I always turn them over to someone else.
Okay.
So if there are people who can help them, I always say, yep, you can go for them.
Okay.
That's not where my expertise lies anyway.
Okay. Yeah, your expertise is on the female parts.
Yeah.
Right. Hey, everybody's got their thing. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the 10 things you can learn from a surrogate. I'm Dana Pepper, and this is Happy Hour. It's no secret that I'm a huge fan of happy hours. And there have been times when I'm sitting in a restaurant bar and I overhear the strangest conversations. And I know, as loud as I am, people have overheard some of mine. So what about you? What's the most bizarre or scintillating happy hour conversation you've ever had or overheard? Submit your story and you could win lunch for 2 at the Center Club. Then listen to Happy Hour with Dana Pepper every Thursday afternoon at 3 to hear the winning story. Go to facebook.com/Happy Hour with Dana Pepper. At At Cremations of Greater Tampa Bay, nothing is more important than family. Funeral director TJ Cohen is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. His experience and compassion brings peace of mind to those dealing with the death of a loved one. Call TJ at Cremations of Greater Tampa Bay at 813-235-0945. That's 813-235-0945. Cremations of Greater Tampa. Compassion, experience, service.
There's a new show coming to the Tan Talk Radio Network. Tune in every Friday afternoon at 3 p.m. for The Legal Forum. Listen to the movers and shakers of our legal community, talking bankruptcy, divorce, employment law, personal injury, and more. Call in with your questions every Friday at 3. The number is 1-866-826-1340. That's Fridays from 3 to 4 p.m. The Legal Forum on the Tan Talk Radio Network.
Hey, this is Ted Nugent. Hi, this is Jay Leno. This is David Hobbs. This is Bob Varsho. Hey, this is comedian, author, and most importantly, vintage race car driver Adam Carolla.
This is Shirley Cha-Cha Muldowney.
Hi, this is Robert Yates.
I'm John Forrest.
Hey, this is Jack Roush. I'm Ken Squire.
Hi, this is Edsel Ford.
Hey, I'm Dave Despain.
Hi, this is Danny Sullivan.
And you're listening to Nostalgic Radio and Cars.
Nostalgic Radio and Cars, Wednesday nights at 7 on the Tan Talk Radio Network.
Tampa Bay's Tan Talk. Entertaining and informative radio for the Sunshine State.
Welcome back to Happy Hour. I'm Dana Pepper, and I'm joined today with Steve Sapato, relationship expert, author, and practicing sex surrogate. One last time, if you'd like to call in with your questions, it's 727-441-3000 or toll free 866-826-1340. Now, Steve, I've got, well, I can't with any degree of certainty guarantee that this will be my last question, but I do want to get into the 10 things you can learn from a sex surrogate. But my last question is, how does this affect your own sex life or romantic life? Like, why, in the beginning when I approached you to come on the show, we had discussed using the alias you use for the Man Update. And when you got here today, you said, no, we don't have to do that. If you're going to plug my books, then we might as well use my real name. And I agree. But I understood why you would want to use an alias, because if you were my man, like, there's no way you're going to be getting women off and teaching them where their clitoris is. I mean, I can't have that. So, and I'm pretty secure as a woman. I'm pretty strong. But how does this affect your romantic life, your dating life, your sex life, all of that?
Well, and that's exactly the point, is there's so few people who really could deal with that type of thing. Mm-hmm. And even though it's helping, I mean, you know, you can say you help other people in all kinds of ways, but once you get to that place, it's taboo. Mm-hmm. And that's unfortunate. But it is something that you have to look at your partner and say, hey, this is now. And I haven't done this recently. So, I mean, most of everything I've done has been in the past. And so it is a place where even talking about having done that in the past, your partners are always intimidated by how many, you know, that's like the question, hey, how many other people have you had in your life?
The number question.
And if you tell them 1,000, you know, they're going to be intimidated.
Whoa, hey, wait a minute. Was that an actual number, or were you just throwing out an arbitrary number?
Yeah. No.
Are you just saying that?
Yeah, I'm just saying that. Now you have to figure out the reality, right? But you know, I mean, let's face it. If you met up with if most men met up with a woman who said, "Hey, I've had more than 100 partners," that guy would be intimidated. And when we talk about erectile dysfunction, most of the time, it's amazing to me how many men of all ages use Viagra for lots of different reasons, but most of the time it's for dysfunction, right? And the reason for that is because at some time when they're 20s, late 20s, they had a failure,
right?
And that's always the first thing in your mind. So when that's the first thing in your mind, it sometimes prevents you from getting that other erection. That's why it takes sometimes, you can't do it when you first get with somebody, but after you've maybe taken a nap or laid together for a while, now suddenly the man's able to have that erection, because that's part of it. Well, when you tell a guy you've had 100 men in your life, the man's like, oh my God, you know, how could I keep up with that?
Right.
And so men get intimidated easily. Women also do the same thing, you know, because it's like, I don't want to be with someone who's been with that many. Well, I haven't really been with them, but I've taught them.
Right.
And so how's it affected? Well, first of all, I will tell you that it's affected my life profoundly in terms of taking the courses and learning how to pleasure a woman. I mean,
when you take the courses, is it hands-on?
Sometimes it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the important part is you think you know. I mean, I was 50 years old, and I think, boy, I'm, like all men, I'm the greatest lover in the world, right? Because a statistic, I talked to you about this before, but there was a statistic out there a couple months ago that says 77% of all women say their partners need to take a course on how to make love. Well, all the women go, when I say that to the women at the places I go, the women all go, yeah. Well, you talk to the men, and they're like, thank goodness it's not me. Yeah, well, it has to be somebody.
It has to be somebody. Right. Hey, hold on, Steve. We've got a caller. Melissa, you're on the line.
Hello.
Hi, Melissa. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fantastic, sweetheart. What's your question?
I wanted to ask your sex surrogate if there was somebody that wanted to do his profession, how long of schooling does it take, or what kind of courses would you have to take if you wanted to do what he does?
Excellent question, Melissa. Go ahead, Steve.
And what I would suggest is the first thing you need to do is go to the tantric courses on meditation, then go to the tantric sexual courses, and there's several of them online, very, very good people out there who will teach you, first of all, the tantric part of learning about yourself. And then the tantric sex is all about learning about what pleasures you. And that's the beginning, because that way, if they're the right people, they will refer you out if they find the qualities in you that they think would lead to you being good at this job.
Melissa, are you thinking of being a sex surrogate?
Are you there, Melissa?
Yeah, I'm here. I was wondering, is classes like these offered at HCC or USF? Or
No, they're not. You have
certain parts of, you got to go somewhere to take these courses from the special schools.
Yes, you do. Yeah, if you go online and put in tantric, TANTRIC, you'll find all kinds of things out there. But you want to look for the people who are established. You want to look for the courses that are established. And yes, you do have to travel to where they are.
Yeah, because
and probably spend a week.
You got your certification out west, correct? Right. And Melissa, also, again, in some of the research that I found, you'll want to look up the IPSA, which is the International Professional Surrogates Association. They certify surrogates and therapists. So that should help you out. I wish you great success on your new career path.
Okay, no, it's not mine, but thank you very much.
And what's important is, as far as I understand still, California is the only state that requires you to be certified.
Correct. They're the only state that requires you to be certified. However, most therapists in other states will not work with someone who has not had the training. So there is, within the profession, there is some regulatory guidelines and things of that nature. All right, so we've got a few minutes left, Steve. I want to get into the 10 things you can learn from a surrogate. Now, one of the things that I saw in the movie, The Sessions, which I highly recommend everybody check out. It's available on demand, Netflix, all of that. But one of the scenes, she was taking off his shirt. She was fully naked, and Helen Hunt showed full frontal in this movie. I couldn't believe it. But I applaud her for that. Go girl. But she gets in bed, and she starts taking off his shirt. And he was so nervous that when she was taking off his shirt, I guess his hand got caught. So we started yelling. And she's like, whoa, listen, yelling isn't sexy. You're not actually in pain. You're just anxious. It's anxiety. It's, whatever. So that's one of the things that you can learn, right? Is that yelling isn't sexy. And not bringing unresolved resentments, frustrations, or raging things into the bedroom, like that saying, never go to bed angry.
Absolutely.
How does that work?
Well, that's, it's in all the years that I've been talking to people, and I've talked to hundreds to write I interviewed more than 2,400 people for my little book, The 20. Mm-hmm. And it's fascinating to me that people say, yeah, but makeup sex is so fabulous. And I'm like, really? Because I find all sex fabulous, right? But they're coming back from that emotional low, and they think that's the high. And why do you have to be at that low to enjoy that big a high? So it is. It's a place where, if you know, and I'm trying to think, there's a couple sites that I constantly read online about people writing articles, coming up with stuff. But it's always fascinating to me how they say these are the things that will stop or hinder sex, good sex, right? And so there's all kinds of things. One of them, of course, would be anger or anything on that level. Okay, anything negative. All right, so when giving, ask what feels good and what doesn't. Now, I know a lot of people that, look at your face. See, I know a lot of people that would have a problem even responding to that. Because for me, if someone, let's get frank. Let's get down with it, right? So if someone is giving me oral pleasure
And they keep asking, does that feel good? Does that feel good? Like, shut up. I'll let you know when it doesn't, but don't keep asking me. So how do you feel about that?
Well, I mean, and that's, again, one of those deals where I on my Facebook page, I'll write lots of romantic stuff.
Yes, I know. I see all your stuff on Facebook. It's awesome.
And I do have a small romantic, like the world's most romantic sayings is just on my page, so you can get that from me. But it's fascinating to me that I'll write, have you asked your partner what you can do for them to make them feel more loved? And women will write and say, I shouldn't have to ask my partner. Or my partner should never have to ask me. Or I don't want my partner asking me. And you're like, now that's a different place than what you're talking about. Because if you expect us to read your mind, get another mind. Yeah. But when you're in bed, that's why I tell people, and we talked about this at some point in time, was that if I'm giving you oral sex, hopefully your body will react, but your sounds, you have to make sounds. If all you do is lay there, it's still great sex for me, sorry, but if all you do is lay there,
right.
I don't know what made you happy. I don't know what feels good. And there's so many women out there. I dated a lady at one point in time who could write. Oh, I mean, the erotica that we wrote back and forth to each other was fabulous.
Nice.
And when we got together, she laid there.
Oh, no.
And I was like, what happened to the woman who was writing all that? And she said, well, that's how I feel inside. I go, well, I have to know that. And she's like, well, yeah, but that's not what I do. I went, wow. How can that be?
Right.
Right. And so your partner, whether you're male or female, has to know it feels good. And it doesn't have to be, does that feel good? Does that feel? No, it's like, if you keep asking me, I'm going to smack you.
Right, exactly. But you can give a little moan, ladies. You can move your hips a little bit. It's all about, this is another point, giving your partner positive reinforcement.
Absolutely.
Yes, letting them know when it feels good, go for it. So another point that I found was taking turns. And by taking turns, it wasn't just, oh, well, first I'll go and then you'll go in this session. No, this session might be all about you, and I'll do everything I need to do to make you feel all kinds of good. And then next time, without me having to ask, you'll reciprocate, right?
Well, it should. Well, now, but understand it. And I talk in my relationships. There's giver, there's takers, and the worst part is the people in between who are takers that think they're givers, and that's fascinating to me. But I had to learn, and I was really late on. I'm very good at giving. Mm-hmm. I love to pleasure my partner, and my partner's pleasure is what excites me. I told you that.
Right.
So I don't have to be excited personally. Well, I had somebody who said, hey, I want to do this for you. And I was like, no, nobody does that for me. I don't need that. Mm-hmm. And she was like, no. And probably 4 or 5 months before she went, I'm doing this for you, and you better start to like it.
Oh, no.
And it took, that type of thing for me to go, oh, because when we talked, she said, you know how that makes you happy to do this for me? I go, yeah. She goes, well, this makes me happy to do this for you. And if you don't allow me, I'm not as happy as I can be. And then I got it.
Right.
And so then I started allowing that person to give me the pleasure that I'd been giving to her all the time.
Right.
And it opened up a whole new avenue. So
and
there
now
are people,
you like it.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But it was eye-opening. Because, I told, my son and I have a very, very good relationship, and he's in his 20s. And at one point in time, when he was only 19 or 20, he said something, because he was up at college and getting all these wonderful experiences.
Right.
And he said, Dad, what about this? And I went, well, I only got 5 BJs from your mom in 20 years of being married. Right?
What?
And
I'm sorry.
Well, and part of it
was that out loud?
Part of it was me not being comfortable receiving, right. But it was the fact that didn't happen.
Right.
And so for me to go to a relationship where that was happening, I was very uncomfortable, and it was difficult to get to that place where you have to understand the other person, and that's what conversation can do for you, and opening yourself to conversation with your partner that really says, "You don't understand me. Here's what you need to understand."
Right. I love that. I absolutely love that. But it also brings up my last and final point, which is intercourse is not the end-all, be-all. There are men that just rush to the intercourse, and hey, we forget about the foreplay. We forget all about the touching and the tenderness and all of that stuff. A lot of times means more to a woman than the actual shebang bang.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah,
yeah. I tell people all the time. I go, when I talk to people, I tell them I'm a lesbian because the first part I only do what a woman would do. If you get your man parts involved too early, it ends too early.
It ends too early. Yeah. All right. Well, Steve, one last and final question. As a relationship expert, when would you recommend a couple or a person seek a sex surrogate?
as soon as they know they have any kind of a problem. I don't care what the problem. It may seem small, but it'll build into something big. As soon as you know, and you don't have to be a sex therapist, but let's go to therapy first. Let's get so you can talk about it openly and go to that therapist as soon as you say, we're having trouble at this level.
Right.
Boom.
Excellent. Well, I can't thank you enough for being my first awesome guest, Steve. This was so much fun, and this is obviously a subject that we could go on and on and on with, but that is going to do it for this edition of Happy Hour. Special thanks to my sponsors, Cremations of Greater Tampa Bay and the Center Club. And again, thank you, Steve, for being here. Go to Amazon.com and pick up his books, The Unintended Casanova and The 20. And while you're fishing around online, if you're a fan of the show after today, then please like the fan page on Facebook.com/Happy Hour with Dana Pepper. You can participate in contests, win some prizes. And if you've got something you want to talk about or a story you'd like to share, you can message me there or send me an email at happyhourwithdanapepper@gmail.com. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining me today for Happy Hour. I hope you learned something new. I hope you had some fun. And damn it, I hope you got yourself some happy. I'm Dana Pepper. Cheers.
WTAN, Clearwater, Tampa Bay. WDCF, Dade City, Tampa Bay. WZHR, Zephyrhills, Tampa Bay. Listen.